to the Buy Box Bandits podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 6 of the Buy Box Bandits podcast. We are so thankful for all our listeners on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms we distribute on. Super excited to be back for another episode. Got my awesome co-hosts, Garrett and Danny here. We got some big things in the works, and tonight's topic, this is the night when we're recording this, we'll be transitioning between online arbitrage and moving into more of a wholesale model, but of which has happened with both my co-hosts, not with me quite yet. So I'm curious to hear their viewpoints on it and just to dig into these two different topics because those are the main business models we all do. So boys, how are we doing this evening?
Solid.
Getting busy. Getting
Yeah.
into nitty gritty of Q4.
Yep. It's October 18th when we're recording this for context. So about 2.5 weeks or so into Q4, my first Q4 as a full-time seller. So I'm very excited about stuff. Stuff selling quick, but stuff's checking into FBA slow, which is a pain. But once it does check in, it's flying, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the slow check-in times right now as well. At least compared like month over month. Like last month at this time, it wasn't that bad, but now I'm really starting to notice it.
Yeah, I've been trying to like once a week kind of pull a lot of the sellers on Twitter. I'll like just post a tweet like how check-in time's been. And surprisingly, like 2 weeks ago, the other time I posted, everyone was saying like not bad, but I just posted a few minutes ago. So we'll see what else people say.
It would be interesting to see because obviously you have the free Discord link down below possibly. But it would be interesting to see like the different check-in times your members say. So maybe
we have there's a section, and that's why I like doing like the tour just to see what people say. But there's also a section in the Discord where people say it's called like check-in times, and people have been, and I don't look at it super closely. I've been posting mine typically for like the Pennsylvania warehouse that most of my stuff goes to. But yeah, it's just interesting. It's kind of a learning experience for all of this as we go, as is, being an entrepreneur and selling on Amazon in general. But yeah, excited to hear you guys' viewpoints on some of this different stuff. And I think we can bring a lot of value tonight.
Yeah, real quick, I'd like to apologize. I don't have my microphone. That is
Boo.
very sorry.
Yeah, we just got flooded with dislikes and negative YouTube comments.
Dude, we haven't really gotten many dislikes at all, which is surprising.
We love our viewers, man. We appreciate it. Definitely.
It's cool. I don't think we've gotten any. I hope no one takes.
Oh, you're gonna jinx it. Someone's gonna hear that comment and just hit that dislike. Anyways, I'm kind of getting into it. So, Danny, starting off, what would you say is at a macro level, broad scope, the difference between OA and wholesale?
I'm excited to hear this answer too.
I mean, I'd really just say with wholesale, like macro, I mean, the products are like in front of you, right? There is no. There is still kind of that sense of searching. Same with OA because not every single product, really hardly any products on a wholesale list are going to be profitable. But you kind of know what all the products are in advance, and it makes it really easy to search through and find out what's profitable and what's not.
Yeah, and I think we should also clarify what each of these models are. We do have an episode that goes kind of in detail into each of them, but just like Garrett, you want to give like a broad overview of the two different models?
Yeah. So with wholesale, you're typically buying from either straight from the brand, a distributor, supplier, any sort of big distribution company, right? On the other hand, with OA, online arbitrage, it's a little bit of a smaller scale. You're purchasing farther down the supply chain, say from a Walmart, a Target, any of these retail big box stores, and you're typically just going from their website, right? Anyone can go search their website, look in grocery, look in toys, etc., and find these sorts of products that we're looking for. However, to contrast against wholesale, you typically need a ongoing relationship with that supplier, and that catalog is typically not open to the public, right? So you have to develop that relationship, oftentimes getting a quote unquote account with the wholesaler, in which case kind of opens the gate, and then you can start to browse through their catalog and see what's profitable and what's not. So that's kind of like the main differentiating factor between the two, I would say.
Another big difference between online arbitrage and wholesale is a lot of times online arbitrage is profitable, could be because there's a shortage of that product, or simply there's just a gap in the market of buying it in person and online on Amazon. Whereas with wholesale, it's typically you're buying at a wholesale price and selling it for retail, usually for retail or maybe right above retail.
Right.
Usually around that
Actually,
price.
yeah, I had never really thought about that. And also there's a lot more and we'll dig into this later, but there's a lot more long-term value, I think, to a wholesale ASIN that's profitable, for the most part, blanket statement, than something that happens to be like an online arbitrage opportunity, because typically you're buying stuff discounted on a site and there's a good chance it's not going to be discounted forever, or that sale they have going on isn't going to be that way forever. But with wholesale, you're kind of, and I haven't done much of this or really any of it, so I'm not the best person to speak on it, but there's more long-term value with, there's a good chance you're like hopefully setting yourself up to be able to buy that product and sell it for years, or at least months.
Right. And so with wholesale, right, the arbitrage is created by typically the quantity, right? We're buying in larger quantities, we're buying in bulk, which oftentimes when you buy at such scale, you create that arbitrage, you create that profit with your purchases. The more you buy, a lot of times the bigger discount you can be provided. So kind of transitioning into the topic for tonight, Danny, I'm an OA seller, theoretically. I'm buying from Walmart's, Targets, etc. What is my mindset in terms of starting to get to that next level, starting to transition my purchases to suppliers, to brands, to distributors, and what is my thought process? What am I looking at?
So like, are you saying like first step? So you're 100%, let's say like someone's 100% OA. I mean,
Yep.
I could,
I'm a listener right now doing about
Okay.
30 to 40,000 in OA. What's
could say,
my next step?
my first steps were, well, make sure you have, this is broad, but make sure you have everything in terms of your company, LLC, make sure all of that's taken care of, because you are going to need that.
Right.
Sometimes you may need a business address. So maybe you could use a UPS box or find a warehouse. You could use something like that. Anyway, once that's all taken care of, my first step was just start reaching out, right? Like whether that's picking up the phone, calling a brand, which is scary. But you just have to start reaching out, because
And it's scary to everyone, and it provides a competitive advantage if you're willing to do it. Like Garrett's brother Dylan, who handles a lot of the outbound stuff for their wholesale operation, like the fact that he's willing to do it is a lot further than most people will go, and that creates an automatic competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, just getting on Google, typing in like, X category wholesalers near me, or whatever type of product, and just starting to fill out those applications or calling people and sending those emails and getting that started is the first step.
Right. So you hit a key point there, and I don't even know if you noticed it, but you said near me, right? And so how we started was we reached out to local distributors first, local brands first, right? Because in doing so, automatically the shipping is going to be the cheapest it could be, right? So that is a competitive advantage, as Miles was talking about, over a seller in California, right? We're on the East Coast. Someone who's trying to purchase from that same distributor from California is going to be at a disadvantage, right? So that was our strategy starting off, is going through those keywords that you were talking about: toy distributor, toy supplier, toy wholesaler, toy bulk, and go through all of them, right? Grocery distributor, grocery wholesaler, all those kind of catchphrases, all of the categories in our area, to try and reach that competitive advantage in terms of shipping, right? Because if we can go pick it up, or if they can drop it off, it just increases our margin, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times if they're within your kind of area, at least I know for some of mine, they'll actually, like, the shipping's free, or it's not, I mean, free, I guess it's technically included in the price. But yeah.
It sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Would you ever, or did you ever consider going to the location?
I have for some things, for
And
specifically
how did
an electronics distributor.
how did that go for you?
It was fine. They would so it was actually with graphics cards, and they would say, because they would have charged me for shipping, and it was some crazy amount because they had to insure it. So I was like, you know what, I'll just go and pick it up, and it was fine. I actually met the sales rep in person, which I think helped me later down, because I spoke to her for like,
oh yeah, and yeah, it's the same thing as Garrett going out to the wholesale shows.
Showed me around. It was actually really cool.
Oh, but so you already had the account though, after you pulled up. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I've never went in person, and
That's okay. Yeah. So neither have we, but I've known people who do that with success.
I would imagine that's really successful. But
yeah, Yeah, I think I cut off, but it's the same thing as like it's so much more of a human type. It's the same thing with Garrett going to ASD and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. It's a human interaction. Because like once I went to this distributor and I actually spoke to the salesperson or sales lady in person and she showed me around, she was then offering me more things to buy.
Bang, beautiful.
Like
and
immediately
yeah,
afterwards.
and just that long-term value, like what I was mentioning earlier. It's awesome stuff.
Yeah. And she keeps me updated on the graphics cards market. And I get
And
emails.
that's so
Really
beautiful
cool.
that she's working to get you product instead of like, because most resellers and Amazon guys are chasing after products, which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'd rather make money this way than a lot of other ways, but that's dope that they're like,
Yeah,
coming.
that's another cool. That's another cool
but
thing
you-
about wholesale. They kind of come to you sometimes, especially if
And
they have deals.
also, yeah, negotiate. I didn't mean to interrupt there. I like where this is our second virtual podcast, so it's tough. But yeah, also like negotiability on stuff too. It's not even a word, but like prices are, you can't negotiate with Walmart like you can with some
Yeah.
smaller brands.
Right.
I mean, to go off your point though, do you know why she's approaching Danny? Is because they're on commission.
Not just the charming looks.
I mean,
Well, I mean-
obviously that. Obviously.
The sales rep. So Danny, you were just talking about meeting with the sales rep and the sales rep trying to, I don't know if push is the right word, but entice you into other products, right? And
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
doing that because the more she sells you, the more she makes,
She gets
right? And so
paid,
that's
yeah.
just another benefit of getting into these wholesale relationships, getting into these, brand relationships, because it's a win on both sides, right? They are entering into the discussion with the same motivation that we are.
Yeah. The great thing also about buying from a distributor or a big one, well, you might not get the best prices to start or maybe really ever. But it's like if I spend $10,000 for distributor A, that's gonna have more value long term than it will if I spend $10,000 at Walmart, because Walmart doesn't care if I spend money with them, but a distributor cares. So if I'm spending $10,000 at a distributor, that's showing I'm spending money, I'm buying product. So on that next product I want, they may look and see, oh, he's already spent X amount of dollars. We could give him more of a discount. He's a long-term customer. Like, it's in both of our benefits to keep that relationship going, which is why I really like wholesale, because the money I spend will continue to benefit me later. Whereas-
Yeah, when
Absolutely.
like Target will ban you for spending too much.
Yeah.
When
Right.
some
Da-
wholesalers will kick you off if you don't spend enough.
Yeah, a lot of
That
them
is
have
true, yeah.
minimum. It's usually not too much, but it's like 1,000 a week maybe, or like 2,000 a month.
Danny, do you know any of your sales reps on like a personal level enough to say, oh, how was your favorite NFL team doing, or that sort of thing? Do you know anyone on that
Yeah,
relationship?
I mean, that's part of it. Like, we've spoken about those things on calls, like just at the end of the call, like, hey, 'cause
Just bantering.
like if we're in the so one of my sales reps is in their headquarters in New York City, and they said they live in Manhattan. And just talked about that. I was like, I have family that live there, and talk about the New York Giants. Go Giants.
Go
But
Giants.
yeah, I mean, of course, that's just like another. It's almost like you're trying to sell them on yourself in the business, just to really create that connection and form a long relationship.
Because they want it as easy as possible. They want to get their commission with the least stress as possible. Vice
Oh, yeah.
versa, you want to be someone that's easy to work with and all that.
And always pay right away. Don't ask questions after they sent. If they've already sent the invoice, and like, you should just be paying it right away. That's what I do, and that's why the one woman at one of my distributors likes me, because I pay like as soon as she sends the invoice, I pay it right away. But
Yeah, and these are some of the things where, we talk about in terms of finding those pain points with the wholesalers, right? And so if you're talking to a wholesaler and they off the bat they say, oh, we don't want to work with any more Amazon sellers, likely the case is that they have had some sort of uncomfortable, irritable experience with another Amazon seller, which is causing them to have that perspective, right? And some of these pain points can be other sellers are waiting to pay their invoices, the connection line isn't available, these sorts of things. And so the more value, the more easily we can be worked with. It just makes a lot of sense moving down the line to continue to work with you.
Yeah, I think being easy to work with is like huge, because like if you're causing them trouble, whether it's even if it's like requesting a return, because a lot of them will let you, not the brands, but some distributors will let you file for returns. Like, they're not going to want to send you stuff if you're filing for returns. And
Right,
also,
because that's just
if you create back order, so when products are out of stock on a lot of these websites or distributors or brands, you can create back orders. If your back order gets filled, buy it. Because if you don't buy it, they might not give you priority on the next ones.
As they
not
shouldn't.
fill your back orders at all. That's literally the whole reason I'm home right now, is because I had a back order get filled, but it wasn't to my Miami address. So I had to buy it, and I bought it. And then that's what I was here to fulfill that.
That's right, guys. He sacrificed the audio quality to come fulfill some orders. But yeah, so what do you say when you're reaching out? If you're brand new, you're doing some OA like I am or whatever, and you're trying to get some wholesale products, what do you say to figure like, yeah, all right, you're selling like some beauty listings or whatever, and you decide to hit up the brands that you're sourcing OA? Obviously, some of the larger brands totally won't mess with you, but what do you say when you're doing outreach?
Dad, do you want to take that?
Sure. I mean, I usually start off with the Garrett line. Hey, I'm a what is it? E-commerce business owner.
Amazon business owner.
So yeah, so I try not to sound too
you always got to say we. It's not it's we.
I actually do say we a lot. You know, I don't know if this is good. I do kind of try to make it seem like it's a bigger operation than is really going on. Like I said,
it's a bigger operation than the majority of businesses in America. I mean,
I might say, if they ask, where are we located? I might say we have a couple warehouses.
Yeah, New Jersey, Delaware, and Miami. Yeah.
But no, I reach out. It depends. So if it's an application, then I just submit the application. If it's a phone call, then I reach out. I explain who I am, what I do, why I want to sell the brand. And if it's a brand I personally use and like, I may express that on the call in some form or another, like expressing, I like X product because of this, because I actually use it in my personal life. But I just explain who I am and what I do. I primarily sell on Amazon. I'd like to start bringing your products on board. I think they're usually estimated monthly spend. So you might want to just offer that. You might want to offer that right away, saying, I'm willing to start off with X amount of dollars spend for this month or next month or whatever.
Because that shows that you're serious and everything.
Yeah. Garrett, how about you?
But also, I mean, so to finish up what you were saying, but you also want to establish the fact that it is a negotiation. It's a business deal, right?
Yeah.
You want to spend X amount of dollars as long as the products fit your criteria, fit your business model, and you're implying that there may be some give and take on their end as well that's required to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
and oftentimes, because, and we've talked about this, not online before, because like being an Amazon seller is anyone can, get an account up and say they're an Amazon seller. It's a way less level of commitment. And that's why you have to bring more value than just saying, I want to sell your stuff on Amazon. It's, I want to spend X amount a month, because they might get hit up every day by people that want to sell on Amazon. And then they've had some bad experiences in the past where the people wanted to spend $200 a month, which probably doesn't satisfy them too much at 10% commission. Yeah. For the work they have to do getting an account open. But when you come in with authority and say, I'm looking to spend this amount of money a month, if it meets my profit criteria, it's a much different kind of framing of your offer.
Yeah, definitely. Miles hit on a good point. Anyone could create an Amazon account. These places, especially if you looked up XYZ wholesaler near me and it was on the first page, they could be getting hundreds of calls or applications from Amazon sellers like a week. So you really have to stand out and make yourself seem different than the rest in a good way. And a great way to do that, so like Miles said, is by offering in that first phone call or email, we're looking to spend, let's say, $10,000 a month or $10,000 on our first order if it can meet our criteria.
Yeah, it's not, I'm an Amazon seller and I want to sell your products. It's I'm Danny and I want to give you that commission check from buying the stuff from you.
Yeah, because they want you to buy it as much as you want to buy it. They want to sell it.
Right. I mean, I think for us, we have different strategies in terms of who we're reaching out to, right? So if we're reaching out to a brand and that's our first priority, we always try and go straight to brand. We have a product in mind or a listing in mind that we are trying to go after, right? And so with that being said, we approach that first phone call with some sort of value add, right? So we have an Amazon listing that they already sell or that is their product. And maybe we acknowledge that, okay, well, maybe we can improve the title this way or change the primary image, or we try and provide some sort of insight up front, providing value up front with not really necessarily an immediate expected return, but trying just to establish that trust, right? And when we're working with these longer term relationships, I think trust is pretty big. And so that's what we try and do with brands specifically, is try and kind of break down that barrier, and develop that relationship by providing as much value up front as we can, in terms of a particular product. And then the conversation just kind of develops from there, right? They if they say no, if they say, we're not interested in any more Amazon sellers, we say, all right, well, try out those changes and let us know if it works. And that's the end of the conversation.
And
Then we
follow up.
right?
Yeah, I knew you were getting to that point. Yeah, and how are you going about finding potential brands or distributors, specifically the brand side? Because I personally know what you're going to say, but a lot of people aren't really keen to these strategies yet, at least just from my experience in the community. So how are you going about narrowing down brands that you might potentially want to reach out to just sell their stuff?
Right. So we really execute on two major strategies. One being with Smartscout, and I don't know if that's the one that you were trying to get me
Well,
on.
I think it's going to be both of them, but yeah, I did want to hear about the Smart Scout strategy, definitely.
Right. So Smartscout is a software tool by Scott Needham, the buy boxer. He created
Such a
it.
good name. So, like the second best Amazon name I've ever heard besides Buy Box Bandits.
Yeah. True. But it's essentially
Probably
a
a better
tool that,
name.
yeah, maybe. But it's essentially a tool that allows you to filter and see the different metrics on a brand level, right? So we can go about, in the grocery catalog, we can compare all the different brands that are being sold in grocery, right? So, and we can set our thresholds. Say, for example, we're looking for brands that have an average sale price of $25 with an average rank of 16,000, with average sellers on the listing of 4, right? And so we set our metrics, and then the software comes back and gives us a list of brands that accommodate all of those filters, right? And so then what we do, we take those brands after we set our filters and we call all of them, right? And when we call all of them, we then spider down from each brand, right? We start at the top of the list, we call the brand. If we don't get the brand, then we work our way down. We try and find a wholesaler with that brand. We try and find a supplier with that brand. And then we can continue to spider web down off of each brand, right? So we did one search, but then we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of results based on the brands, based on the suppliers of those brands and the distributors of those brands.
Yeah, I have a decent point, I think. And once you start looking at the Amazon listings, you can tell that some of the brands, specifically if you can tell it's wholesale stuff, maybe the Keepa's really stable, so it's mapped or something like that. And if there's sellers that only have, 50 reviews, 100 reviews, those are probably fairly comparable to your, scale if you're doing anything under like 200K a month in revenue. If you start seeing the stores with thousands, tens of thousands of reviews, they're probably, really high level and you might not want to compete with them. But if a lot of the sellers have a lower review count, there's probably a good chance that maybe these brands don't have super high minimums, or maybe they're not super hard to work with. And if someone else can get that account, why can't you as well?
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
That's a good point. And kind of one last point on Smartscout before we transition into the second strategy that we use is Smartscout even gives monthly revenue of the brand, of all the products, right? And so that kind of gives you a scale in terms of how big the brand is, right? So if you are a smaller wholesaler, maybe you don't have your eyes set on a brand that's, doing $60-70 million a year, maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe 10, right? You go after some of the smaller brands that have a lower valuation and see if you can kind of instill yourself into those smaller brands.
Awesome. So what's your second strategy?
And so it's similar. So a lot of our audience is probably more familiar with tactical arbitrage, right? And so you could do the same sort of thing with this software as well, right? You do your filters, you run your search however you want, right? And there's actually a little tweak you do in the settings.
In the gutter, Garrett.
That's going to be a good clip. That's definitely going to be a funny clip.
How to get your mind out of the gutter. I'm running an Amazon business or an OnlyFans. Come on, man.
So with tactical arbitrage, you're not necessarily inputting the buy costs, but you would go into the settings, and I think it's settings, advanced settings, and you're looking to essentially create a generic pricing rule that puts all the buy costs at about 50% of what it's being sold at Amazon, right? Because the assumption is most wholesalers, if it's going to be a profitable wholesaler, you can get it at about 50% of retail, right? So that's the assumption that we're working with. So then you get your tactical arbitrage results and you do the same thing. You look for a keeper that's interesting, that has stability, that has consistency, all the points that we always like to make. And right, that's where you develop that and you create that sourcing list. You write down your brands, you call the brands, and then you do the same thing. You branch off the brands into the suppliers and distributors, and that's how you create your list. So those are really the two major ways that we create our leads lists. And then we just take those lists and start calling.
No reverse sourcing.
Yeah, that is reverse sourcing. You're starting with
Okay,
Amazon.
I kind of figured you were gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great strategy as well. The wholesale made easy type reverse sourcing where you start on Amazon, that kind of thing. But we probably don't have a too good way to walk through it if none of us really do it. But I think that's an awesome method as well.
Yeah, I mean, and so what Miles is talking about, right? And with the reverse sourcing is, and kind of, I just created a shortcut for you guys there. But if we're on Amazon, right, and we have that, what's the extension, Miles, that they use? I think it's
DS Amazon Quick View, which is free, and it's
Great extension.
insane that it's free. Yeah.
That's
Right.
That's for our listeners, that's DSD as in Dylan Goral, co-owner, all out Amazon, and S as in share screen, which I'm looking at right now on Zoo. DS Amazon Quick View. You can just from a search on Amazon, when you're looking at like dozens of products, just off like a keyword search, you can see automatically how many FBA sellers it has and whether Amazon's selling or not. Typically for wholesale stuff, it's a decent rule of thumb to stay off of what Amazon's on. You can check the keeper to see how often Amazon's on it. And if it's under 3 FBA sellers, there's a good chance it's a private label listing.
right.
Good rule of thumb for all our aspiring wholesalers out there.
That's another good thing you touched on. Stay away from Amazon listings. I try not to touch any, just because I've noticed sharing the buy box with Amazon is usually heavily in Amazon's favor, and
rightfully so. I mean, rightfully so. Amazon hogs the buy box, and basically what that means is Amazon, within the algorithm, when they themselves are selling the product, they give themselves algorithmic benefits that don't, they wouldn't make sense for it to be on other sellers.
Also, if I've seen listings where a bunch of people were priced lower than Amazon, and then Amazon came on, and I guess they try to liquidate the rest of their inventory at like maybe close to their buy cost, and then they absolutely destroy the listing by doing
destroyed it.
So I'm not sure if
destroyed it.
Yeah, no, seriously. Like the whole listing explodes.
Podcast exclusive. It's interesting looking at the Kiva charts on a lot of toys right now. If you can go back and see that Amazon sells out of stuff like during Q4, and then it goes to the moon, stuff that Amazon's selling right now. Probably the only place somebody's sharing that little piece of game. Go just dig around looking at some toy listings and you'll see some of that stuff.
And Miles, how do you get those triangles that you always like to talk about? How do you get those onto the Keepa?
Isn't it just sales, right?
No, you gotta click it.
Yeah, you gotta click it.
Wait, what?
The triangles where it says buy box price, like FBA buy box price.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, you gotta have the triggers set within Keepa, or not triggers, like the parameters of what you want to see on the chart.
Right, and so what Miles is alluding to, right? So if you're looking at a Keepa, you would see Amazon essentially always in stock at
the
$20.
orange wave of death.
But then you'll see these triangles at 55.
Okay, my
scattered.
bad. Yes, and especially when they go out of stock, preferably or most likely the first 3 weeks of December, stuff goes to the moon. And I have not planned accordingly this year, but will plan accordingly next year for that, and probably make a big bag off it, hopefully.
A big bag. So getting back to the wholesale conversation, Danny, how many theoretically calls would you say our folks should be making a week?
So, okay. All right. So like, it depends. So like, if you're creating accounts with distributors, those accounts usually aren't that hard to get in my experience. If everything with your company's in
Yeah,
line.
because they're a distributor for
Yeah.
a reason. That's their sales channel.
If you're calling brands though, that's a completely different. Also, side note, another great way I found good brands is actually through the distributor. So I might buy a bunch of products through the distributor, and then I might just try to go to the brand directly myself.
Just completely screw the distributor that nicely sold you product. Just business, babe.
Yeah. Because sometimes they might not be buying as much as you can. They might be actually placing the order to the brand. So if you could cut them out,
Complex.
you're able to get more money from it.
Danny spends lots of money on Amazon products.
But yeah, I think the statistic is, what is it, like 100 calls, 10 will open. Out of those 10, like 1 or 2 will be profitable. Yeah, I mean, you got to make hundreds of calls.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We don't mean this, or these guys don't mean it to scare anyone away. It just shows you that how many people will actually make 100 calls. Very, very few. So for those of us that do take action, there's that competitive advantage that you can get stuff that other people can't.
Yeah, I mean, you could
Just think about it though. What's that?
I was gonna say you could do it in a day, in a sitting. You could, you create a sheet. This is what I did. I created a spreadsheet of all the brands and distributors I wanted to call, had all the numbers, and then I sat down for like 4 hours and called all of them.
And a key point to that is, as you're making these calls, have some sort of sheet that you can take notes on, right? Because you'll want to notate how these conversations go, right? 2 of those brands may want you to call them back in a couple weeks, right? But how much of a better foot are you calling back in 2 weeks if you already know what their favorite sports team is, right? If you have that information and you've gotten that in the first call, what kind of a position do you think you put yourself in by saying, "Hey, I just saw the Giants won yesterday. How does that make, like, I mean, some easy way and easy entrance into that second phone call. You're already approaching from a different foot."
Yeah. So what I did with my spreadsheet specifically was I had like a notes tab, and then I just color coordinated. So like red was like, absolutely not, there's no hope. They basically they told me to go F off my phone. And then maybe yellow was like they were reaching back, and green was maybe they sent the email to create my account, or green or they're gonna reach back out at another time or whatever. So definitely stay organized on it, because calling like hundreds of people, it's very quickly to get disorganized. And then you want to know who's calling you. So maybe even put these in your contacts. If one of them calls you back and you kind of answer and go, "Who is this?" Like, you don't know, it could be a bad luck. So make sure you try to remember which number is which, or write it down, or look it up before you answer it.
Garrett, do you guys still use Vendrive?
I was just about to ask Danny. We love Vendrive. We love,
yeah.
love,
So
love Vendrive.
yeah, it's neat, guys. Vendrive is a CRM for wholesale distributors or brand, whatever contacts you want to work with, and you can move them through a flow of the update, how they are. You can add notes. It's pretty sweet.
I don't use Vendrive. I've looked into it, but I've never used it.
Yeah, it's
really
amazing.
cheap too.
Really?
Yeah, was it like 20?
24 or something like that.
It's worth every dollar, especially being a multiple person operation. It's huge for us because we can move wholesaler suppliers through the pipeline, and both of us can interact with a profile without having to actually talk. What's that?
I was gonna say you could both see updates on it without having to talk to Dylan.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like Dylan and I work our way through our wholesaler without ever having to communicate about it. Like, Dylan can create an account if he calls and wins the account, right? I get a notification that account has been created. I can then go in with the catalog that he uploaded. I can run that catalog, then go back into the profile, notate any ASINs that are productive or profitable. Then he can go in and purchase those ASINs, right? So we just did 3 steps without having to say one word, and that just saves a ton of time for 1, stays organized for 2. And I was talking about before when we're calling up front and say, if some wholesalers want to be called back or we feel we need to call them back, well, we write notes for that second and third call, right? And that just increases our advantage. Because one thing that we've noticed, the higher the barrier of entry with the supplier, I think the better off and the more long-term value it could potentially have. That's just one thing.
That just makes sense. Yeah, I agree with
Usually
that.
the harder accounts to get tend to be the best ones, just because
Absolutely.
they're trying to keep everything, in their circle or whatever.
Right. So that's why if you're listening and, you potentially made your first list of calls yesterday and a lot of them were no. Call them back next week. Call them back in a month or two.
Follow up. The fortune is in the follow up.
Continue to follow up until literally they block your number. Right. There's no harm in getting a no.
All they could say is no, or just block your number. And then at that point, you highlight it on your list as red. And then maybe you follow up later down the line.
Because if the brand is not personally selling on Amazon, there's opportunity. 1000% there's opportunity. Because
if they're selling on Amazon, it's most likely not going to work.
But if they're
it just
not,
doesn't make sense. Yeah.
No, but when they're not, that's where all the opportunity is.
Right. And especially if they try and tell you no and they're not on Amazon, well then, a brand would be like Amazon is the biggest channel to sell products on 1000%, right?
That's why there's such a big arbitrage opportunity right now with some of the huge clothing brands. The one specifically, their logo is a check mark. There's a huge opportunity, a bunch of their clothes and
other brands in general too. Like sometimes like Amazon's on a lot of Adidas stuff, but I was looking at Keepa and like they sell out, sometimes during Q4 on stuff. And that's why I think there's tons of FBA sellers, like resellers on some of these listings. It's interesting to look at. I'm actually going to dive into that probably after the call too, because I want to kind of dig into that more.
Yeah, that's actually a cool. I don't think we've ever talked about. All right, well, I guess you touched on it. That OA or RA strategy of even if Amazon is on the listing, if they're selling out every 2 weeks and there's a 2 or 3 week period where they're not on it.
As a beginner, I would say stay away from that. Yeah, it is, but like I think there's too much stuff where you don't have to worry about.
When you're starting to kind of. Because I think for me, I kind of hit a wall with OA, how much I was able to really do in a day. So I had to look for other opportunities, not talking about wholesale. And that was one of them, was looking in spaces where Amazon might be selling out on something. And if there's a few weeks where they're not on it, price goes up.
Back in the day when we were all grinding on Tactical Expander. Good times. That was only 6 months ago, dude. 7 months ago.
It blows my mind.
Crazy, dude. Like we've all made like 6 figures since then. Like crazy, dude. We literally like that first call and I was like, hey, can this dude named Danny who went to my high school join? It's like I guess, man. Like it's a week I met Garrett.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's funny. I was talking to the real estate agent today about extending the lease, and he said, yeah, in 6 months when your lease is up. I was like, there's no way I've only been on this lease for 6 months. But it's only been 6 months.
You thought it was longer?
I thought it was.
Well, when you sleep there, dude, it has to be, man.
I thought I've been on the lease longer, yes. But yeah, crazy. Only halfway through.
It was the early May, late April. Yeah.
Are you thinking of moving out of that business park when the lease is up?
So that's conversation for.
No, I know. Or should I say new product soon, potentially.
The bandits are expanding into new territories.
Very exciting. Anyway,
announcements coming soon. And then,
back to what
Danny. Yeah, so I have another question for you, Danny. Have you ever considered or have you ever done, in terms of starting that initial conversation with a supplier, would you ever consider purchasing product at a either small loss or break even with the assumption that down the line you are going to get a better deal?
Yes, I purchased an absurd amount of product.
It's a beautiful thing. I think Amazon Let's talked about that before.
Close. Yep. I personally wouldn't do it for a loss just because I don't.
Principles, man.
Unless the brand, I only do that. The only time I do that is with graphics cards is when they say, because a lot of times with that, you have to purchase. So if I purchase, let's say, this just happened. I had to purchase 20 graphics cards, but I also had to buy 40 motherboards at like a $40 loss each. Now for that, it made sense because you make a lot of money.
The numbers. Yeah.
But, I wouldn't take a loss unless I directly knew I was getting a certain profitable product, but I have taken like less than 5% margin, like very close to zero, in hopes that when I buy a lot of it, I could come back and say, hey, look, I bought a lot of X product. I really would like Y product for this price, and I could buy this much of it, and I'll continue to buy X.
Yeah, and you're tossing around a lot of spend too. It's kind of been cool throughout this episode to learn a little bit more, like of stuff you like how you're moving that I didn't really know at all. So once again, giving some good
Ha-
game out there.
Have you ever been approached by a supplier that was trying to liquidate a certain product and you took it on just to kind of develop that value, develop that relationship?
Not really liquidate, but like the reason why I'm here today is because they called me and they're like, hey, we saw you had this back order. We've allocated this much to you. Do you want to like, so, you got to say yes. Like that's another thing. When they approach you with product you expressed interest in, you have to be ready to take that. And you need to have the credit or the capital available to take that on seriously. Because if I said no to that, that could completely blow up my relationship with this brand.
That's actually a good segue into maybe the next point of conversation in terms of purchasing from wholesalers. What are we talking about for someone who's not purchased anything from a wholesaler before? Is it credit? Is it lines of credit? Is it cash? What are we talking?
So I mean, there's a few different ways. There's all right. So the two ways, the quickest ones is cash, which would just be a wire. And then the second one would just be credit card, which usually they'll add on like 3%. But
yeah, because
the biggest way, which is how a lot of people grow and is what I'm trying to expand on more right now, is net terms. So for people that don't know what that is, so that it usually is either net 30, 60, or 90. And that net, so like net 30 is, it could be net 30 from when you receive it or when the invoice is placed. So what that means is you pay 30 days later, right? A lot of brands won't do that unless you're established, or distributors won't do that unless you're established and you've bought stuff before. But you might be able to get like $50,000 or $100,000 that you can use in net 30 terms, which can, or let's say like net 60. At that point, your inventory should already be turned over in Amazon. That's how people can really grow and expand their business through wholesale.
And why is that so huge?
Because you're able to leverage other people's capital, right? You're able to leverage the distributor's capital, which again, like I talked about, spending with that one distributor is going to keep going farther in the long run. But it's just essentially just leveraging other people's money, right? You don't have to spend your own. You keep more in house. You can just buy more product and keep growing.
And in order to get these net terms, is it a credit application? Is it just kind of?
Yeah, it's usually credit. It's like I know this isn't the right term, but I know for one of mine, it's like faith-based. Like I didn't have to apply. It was just like, it was in good faith that they knew I was going to pay because I paid on time so much before, whether like credit card or whatever. So I asked, and I didn't have to fill out an application. I immediately got X amount of dollars allotted to me for net terms. But usually, yes, it's usually credit. And when you're starting out, you're probably not going to get them just because of your company hasn't been around long enough. Or they might not take a personal guarantee. The only company I know that gives out net terms right away is Uline, where we order all our stuff from. I don't know if you guys know, if you guys, I use it because why not? But they give out net terms.
Did you see the meme that you could finance Domino's Pizza?
No,
I did not know.
Dude, because all memes start on Twitter. It was only on Twitter so far, but yeah, you can buy now, pay later on Domino's Pizza now. I think it was through an app though, but yeah.
Garrett, have you leveraged net terms at all, or are you starting to, or trying to?
We haven't gotten any net terms so far. It's only cash or credit.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same with me. I just started asking for net terms after I've spent a lot of money, just because like it's like, eventually you're going to hit a wall, and then eventually you're going to hit a capital wall. Right now I've kind of hit the Amex credit wall. I'm approaching capital
We hate
wall.
to see it. We hate to see it.
I mean, it's not really like kind of, but yeah, I mean, you got to really leverage other people's money. That's the main way to grow
responsibly, and you gotta take into account your risk tolerance and that. And
of course, but like you're not getting net terms unless you have established business credit, which means you've been in business for a while and you're doing well, or you've been buying products. So those two things under consideration, at that point you're definitely calculating your risk well.
And I guess before we start to wrap up here, what sort of minimums have you seen with your brands and
Yeah,
distributors?
I'm curious about this as well, because that's one of the big limiting beliefs I've had in the past about wholesale.
I mean, it could either be quantity or dollar, but I know I seen some grocery ones that were $2,000 a week.
But that's yeah, for someone who's new, that's a lot. Yeah. And probably for you at the time.
I mean, yeah, it definitely is a lot. I mean, that's where I would leverage credit, but again, you got to take into account your own risk tolerance. But yeah, some of them, a lot of them are like 1 to 2,000 a week or maybe 5-10 a month. That's just what I've seen in New Jersey. In my area. I know it's different. Like if you go to some place that's super, super small, they might not have minimums, but you might not be getting the best prices. A lot of times places with dollar minimums are giving decent prices, or you have more of an opportunity to get better prices in the long run.
Right. Yeah. We've seen a lot more order minimum quantities rather than monthlies. Right.
So
So
like
for a particular
per unit,
order,
right?
yeah. Yeah. So it would have to be, in order to place the PO, it has to be a $3,000 PO. We haven't seen as much on the monthly basis, but I mean, we definitely have seen some.
Right. Have you seen SKU level minimum? Okay.
No.
So you're able to kind of, so like let's say if you don't meet the minimum purchase dollar amount, you can kind of wait and gather a bunch of stuff, even if it's
Yeah, just add more SKUs to the PO. Yeah, for sure.
awesome. Yeah, I think mostly. Actually, no. I was gonna say I think mostly brands give them out, but distributors do as well. Side note, I mean, brands are only selling obviously that brand, and brands sell to distributors, and distributors then distribute the product. So distributors are gonna have a lot of brands, and then brands are obviously only themselves.
What are some of the benefits that you would say come with ordering from a brand over a distributor?
You're going right to the brand. So like, because they're break even, or not their break even, their buy cost or their production cost
Manufacturing,
is a lot
yeah.
lower. There's so much more room to work with a brand in terms of negotiation than a distributor.
Just less hands in the pot, right?
Yeah, way less hands in the pot. And yeah, your negotiations are always going to go better with a brand usually, in my experience, than with a distributor, because your distributor could only be as good as hard as your sales rep is working for you. And a lot of times, if you can't go directly to a brand, if you want to order X amount of things from a distributor, like they're still going directly to a brand. So
yeah, and a lot of times with brands, you have that opportunity just to provide more value, right? They care about their brand more than a distributor would, right? So they have more appreciation for you bringing some of these points that we talk about in terms of optimized listings and optimizing that brand than say a distributor would.
Yeah, and I never thought about that, nor have I ever attempted to offer anything like that, which is really interesting. I'm definitely going to try it.
Yeah, because one of the major selling points when you're talking with brands is PPP or PPCs.
Garrett, mine's in the gully.
Because I mean, you could reference what you've done with other listings, right? You
Right.
can
Social proof.
Exactly. You could say, oh, I took this listing from doing 2,000 units a month to 4,000 with this campaign I ran. Look at here, you see the data from month to April or May to April, and you can have that sort of data and bring that to the next brand and say, okay, I can do this same sort of thing with you, if you provide us with the opportunity to work with this and go into business with us.
Yeah, definitely. Miles, any remarks on OA to wholesale? Or
I think we pretty much covered it all here, and my cat's pounding down the door here. I don't know if our viewers, if our super expensive mics are picking that up, but yeah, I think we'll wrap up here. Really appreciate all you guys listening. Our next episode we'll have a guest on it, but I believe this is episode 6. We're wrapping up here. We appreciate it. Hopefully our next episode we can get Danny with the fake guru background in there once again, the Miami view. But yeah, out here in rural Pennsylvania, enjoying it. giving some game on the Vivox Bandits podcast. We'll see you guys on the next one.
See you guys.